After writing 2 transformational books myself and supporting many other beings to do the same, I've become enthralled by the deep and mysterious magic that's activated when we choose to say yes to ourselves and commit to the book writing journey. Of course, we want to inspire change and new perspectives in our readers, but the transformation that happens as an author, both throughout the writing process and by actually releasing your book into the world, is surprisingly potent. I know I've been blindsided in the most disruptive and delicious ways by some of the changes my books have brought into my life. Writing a book is like casting a spell. Although we can never be completely sure what's going to be unleashed during the process, we choose to do it anyway. This Unbound one is a heroic journey. Each book has the potential to be a magical portal, a doorway to a new world, both for you and your reader. Each book has a very specific medicine that it's here to share with us. And each book gives us the opportunity to alchemize the magnificent imperfection of our experience into gold. The truth is that anyone can write a book. We could all get a few thousand words down and put them together. But what fascinates me is what happens when we allow the book writing process to go deeper. When we say, fuck it, get naked and dive way down beneath the surface. Letting go of the shoulds and any need to be acceptable, sensible, or approved of. What fascinates me is what happens when we make ourselves fully available to being transformed by the very act of writing a book. This is Unbound Writing, and this is the process we'll be exploring together here in the Unbound Writers Club. I'm Nicola, author and founder of the Unbound Press, and I help magical beings to write the transformational book they're really here to write at this time. I'm your guide here in the Unbound Writers Club, and the aim of this podcast is to help you to feel supported, encouraged, activated as you embark on your book writing journey. Whether you're a first-time author or have many books out in the world, my hope is that you will find something here to inspire you. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unbound Writers Club. Today I am joined by one of our authors here at the Unbound Press, and she is Jennifer Flint, author of Wild Egg. So Wild Egg is only our second fiction book, actually, and it's a brilliant one. When we publish fiction, it's got to be brilliant, and it's got to be... it's got to have transformation at its core, because that's what we do here at the Unbound Press. We publish transformational books. And Wild Egg is just that. It's the story of one woman's search for her child-free life. So it's based on a true story, based on Jennifer's own story. Wild Egg explores one woman's struggle to break the deadlock of ambivalence to decide whether becoming a biological mother is her wholehearted choice or simply what she's been programmed to believe. So, this really resonated with me as well as a child-free woman. And when Jennifer first connected with us, a bit earlier than this last year, actually, when we first had a conversation, I just knew that Wild Egg and Jen would be the most amazing fit for the Unbound Press. So I'm so delighted that she decided to publish with us. Wild Egg is out on July 7th. So as this is going out, it's coming out tomorrow. It's available for pre-order, though. You can hop over and order it right now. And this conversation is so delicious. Jen talks to us about her book writing journey, which has been quite the twisty turny one. And more about what inspired her to write Wild Egg. So let's dive in. So Jen, welcome to the Unbound Writers Club.
Hi, Nicola. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. Really excited for this conversation. And before we get into all things Wild Egg and your writing journey, I always start with the same question in these conversations, which is, what does it mean to you to be an unbound writer?
I love this question. What it means to me is it's about letting go of the shoulds, of all of the things that you've been taught about, what you think you should do, and allowing that creative flow to come through, and surrendering and trusting your own instincts, your own energy, your own creative flow, and kind of almost following that. So it might mean, certainly what it meant for me was that the writing process was much more emergent and messy than I'd probably thought it would be, or tried to make it in the past when I was going in the non-unbound way, which was, I had a project plan, I had how many words I was going to do every day. It was all going to be perfect, and I was going to, hit a certain milestone at a certain time, so many words a day. And it just didn't happen like that at all. So it was much more a case of let go of control and just listen to what wants to come through, and follow, and have the humility to follow that, even if you don't really know where it's going and you don't have all of the I's dotted and the T's crossed. So it feels like it's learning to trust yourself and trust the process, I think.
Yeah. Which is, it's an evolving process, isn't it? It doesn't happen just like that.
Definitely.
So when did your writing journey begin, Jen? Like your first steps with this particular book? And I know it's evolved through the process, but
yes,
if you think right back to the beginning, when was that?
With this book, the journey started in May 2020. So it was just in the early part of lockdown, sort of April, May. I had been wanting to write a book for 20 years, and I kept getting in the saddle and falling out of the saddle and getting back in the saddle. That had gone on for a long time. So I had set my life up differently, thinking, okay, I'm ready to have another go. And just as I had all of myself ready to go, I joined a little writing pop-up group in lockdown, thinking, this will be great. It'll just be a little kind of kickstart. And what happened in that week that I was doing this pop-up group was, to my complete surprise, I have to say, because I thought I was writing a very different book. Wild Egg kind of turned my head, introduced herself and said, no, you're not writing that book, you're writing this book, which was very frightening when it happened, because I had that moment where I remember kind of having a gulp physically, because I thought, this is my story. I don't know about that. But Wild Egg began downloading, and I thought, okay, this is what we were talking about just before. I thought, okay, this book, I'm like the servant of this book. Clearly she wants to be written, and I think she's chosen me, so I better just get on with it. So and then there was a process of starting to write it as a memoir, which took about 9 months. And then I had some advice from someone professional in publishing who strongly advised me to turn it into a novel. So I felt like for a period of time I was kind of trying to ride two horses, because I was kind of writing it as a memoir and a novel, because I wasn't quite sure what she wanted to be, and I felt like she was testing me a little bit. How committed are you really to this process? So I just kept humbly bowing down and saying, it's okay if you don't know what you want to be. If today you're a novel, that's fine, just show me what you want. If today you're a memoir, that's fine, show me what you want. And I just had to kind of bow down and just roll with it. And eventually, after a few months, she stabilized and was like, okay, we're a novel. And then kind of went from there. And then it kind of took so it was 9 months to write a bit of a memoir, and then another 9 months to kind of rewrite it as a novel.
Amazing. I'm really intrigued about that moment, or that time when you say Wild Egg kind of turned your head.
Yes.
How did that happen? What happened?
It was very funny. So what had happened was, a few months before this, Because as I said, I was so determined. It was my dream to write a book. And as I said, I'd been trying and failing for a long time. So I thought, I'd organised lots of practical things in my life, but I thought, I feel like I need to do something a bit more energetic. Mm. And as it happened, my friend invited me to go to Samyling Monastery in January that year, and she knows it very well. She's volunteered many times there. So I thought, perfect, a little trip to Samyling Monastery. That feels like a great way to start this year when I'm so determined. That feels like, real lovely serendipity. So we went to Samyling and I remember this one day we were having a conversation in the Tibetan tea shop, and she was kind of telling me about J.K. Rowling, who'd recently been on a radio programme talking about, it was the Museum of Curiosity. And she said that she wanted to donate imagination into the museum, which I just found fascinating. So my friend was telling me about her process. And as I was listening to it, I felt the hairs kind of go up on the back, like on the back of my neck. So I remember thinking, when I leave Samyling in a couple of days, I'm going to do like a little ritual, and it's something kind of connected. There's something in this conversation somehow that's connected to that. So when my friend left, I did myself like a little ceremony, and there's loads of lovely sacred places around Samyling. And at the end, my friend had told me, there's this amazing tree. I think it's an oak tree, and it's one of those places that over the years a lot of people have sat and tied wishes on the tree, and it's just got this like lovely energy about it. So I finished my little ceremony there, sat by the tree, and I wrote on a piece of paper. I kind of prayed to to whatever, Green Tara, and I just said, look, I'm so ready to write this book. Please, 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 will you give me a download like JK? And I wrote it on a piece of paper and tied it on the tree. So that was that. Lovely jubbly. So I felt like, right, I'm ready. So when lockdown happened and this pop-up book came about, I think it was like second or third day. So there was a tiny little challenge that you had to submit into Facebook every day. And on this particular day, the challenge was to put your title in. So I still thought I was writing this as a book at this point. So I kind of thought, well, I think I know what my title is. But I thought, no, I'll really engage and I'll really step back, blank piece of paper, really think about this. So I'd been talking to a friend of mine and I was cycling. So the story of J.K. Rowling, which people may or may not know, is that she literally got a download of Hype Up when she was on a train. So I was on my way back from seeing my friend and I'd been talking about, various ideas. And I was cycling home along this old wagon ways track. And as I was cycling on my bike, there was a moment where all I can say is it felt like a hand got hold of the side of my house and turned my head. I remember turning my head to the left and I literally heard wild egg and I went, what? How? Wild egg? What's wild egg? And then I turned back round and then it started to download. And then I went, it's the Samyling tree. I'm having a download like JK. So I was cycling, as fast as my legs would carry me, trying desperately to get home so I could sort of write this idea that was coming through. So yeah, that's actually like the moment that it happened.
So it literally turned your head. I mean,
it literally did this. It was the strangest experience. Yeah, it literally did. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds quite dangerous actually as you were riding the bike back. You like managing to get yourself home.
Yeah.
That's just incredible. It's kind of like no way you could have not gone with that then.
Exactly. What choice did I have, really, quite honestly?
And as the book has evolved, from initially being a memoir to a novel, how has your relationship with the book, with Wild Egg, changed and shifted? I don't know if you can find words for that.
That's a good question. I think when I was writing it as a memoir, at first I felt more comfortable. I felt comfortable once I got over the vulnerability, like, I don't know if I want to share my story. I thought, well, then kind of as it started to download, I thought, well, at least I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I know what happened, and I kind of know the plot in that, so far as that goes. So there was a degree to which I thought, okay, well, so I started, writing it all down. And my journey was probably about, by this point, 8 years. So it was quite long. It was quite convoluted. And I started thinking, people are going to be going, oh, then she went to another workshop, then she went to see this therapist. I thought, actually, that's going to be quite hard, probably a bit hard work for someone to read that. And when I got that advice to turn it into a novel, my first reaction was, I've got a kind of, I thought, I don't think I'm creative enough really to write something that's made up, which was interesting. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then I just thought, okay, let your ego, move your ego out of the way. Just if maybe it wants to be a novel, let's just see what happens. And then I think there was a few days later, I remember walking along by the sea and I heard the name Holly Hardwick just kind of popped into my head. And I thought, ooh, I like that name. And then I just sort of I started to see little snippets of scenes and little snippets of dialogue and things of that nature. And so I just thought, okay, I'll just start to write this down. And I think as it started to emerge, I started to get a bit excited because I thought, well, actually, if this is Wild Egg and this is the Wild Egg way of writing the book, which is that I'm not really in control of this, then actually, and if I trust that, really deeply trust that, to a level that I've not really done before, and maybe this is part of my journey with the book, then of course there's creativity will just pour through because it's not totally me. So that kind of made me feel a bit relieved in a way, because I thought this is actually really quite liberating because it's not all just about, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in her brilliant talk, doesn't she, about your elusive creative genius? Because I thought, if I'm just a vessel for something to come through, it kind of takes so much pressure off. And I think gradually I started to get a bit excited and think, actually, this could be quite fun. Then I can make some things up that, I can play a little bit with it. And then I guess I got to the point of thinking I can share the trajectory of my journey, but I can maybe think about shortening it, and some different things might happen for Holly to get her to kind of the same point, but in a different way. And I felt like it kind of got into this symbiotic relationship where I sort of let go. As I let go, the book kind of came through, and then I was able to almost add some of my experiences in, and it felt like I was in this kind of dance with it, like in a flow. And I think, and so I think it felt like in and of itself, the process was another personal development journey for me, because in my life now, not just in writing, I'm starting to find that I'm asking the question, what's the Wild Egg way of doing this?
Oh, I love it.
In other ways, around other decisions and things. So I feel like it was almost, I was changing as I was writing it at the same time.
I love that. I love the way you describe it. And yeah, the word liberation kind of came through for me. Like the idea of, I think when we're trying to write our own story, we can get very hung up on the detail, and it's like, oh, well, I've got to include that because that happens and that led to this. And, whereas writing it as a novel, it feels like there's a lot of freedom in that. I'm interested to know, like you mentioned about the Wild Egg way of doing things, like not just writing, but in your life. So what does that mean for those listening? What is the Wild Egg way? What is Wild Egg energy?
It's interesting with these things, isn't it, when you're trying to wrap words around it. The Wild Egg way to me is logic and rationality is no longer the driver of the car, and it's not really reading the maps either. In the back. So I feel like when something comes, so one of the examples of this definitely feels like the Wild Egg way was I bought an off-grid cabin last year. There was no rational reason for it. In fact, rationally, it was a really stupid idea. but I had this powerful embodied feeling, and it's a feeling of like an alignment feeling is the way I would describe it. So there's some like, does this feel in my body and intuitive, like juicy and slightly maybe edgy, like there's a kind, I suppose the wildness is a bit like, oh, there's some frissons in it, like it's maybe not the safe way, it's definitely not the rational way, but there's a powerful hell yes in my body. And buying the off-grid cabin was definitely an example of that, because I couldn't particularly really afford it. I knew that I was not going to have a job, like a kind of steady income, not long after I was about to do that. I don't know anything about solar panels or anything at all, and it needed a lot of work. And there was a whole list of reasons why it was a really dumb idea. But when I walked in, I had a really strong feeling. So I got a friend of mine sent me the advert for it, saying, one of those like irresistible phrases where she said, "I don't know why, but I feel like I'm meant to send this to you, Jen." And I opened this thing and said, "Don't know why, I feel like I'm meant to buy this." And I said, "What?" I've never even thought about buying a cabin. But I felt this incredibly strong pull. So I went to see it. And when I went inside, and I had this fantasy that it's going to be like this writing den. And when I went in, he was showing me around this place, and it was a bit of a mess. But in the back, there was this like what is now a lovely little sunroom place. And I remember pointing over in the corner, and I said, "Is that what I think it is over there?" And he went, "Oh, what?" He said, and then I said, "Paraffin lamps." And he went, yeah. My dad, because he was a lighthouse keeper, always had paraffin lamps in our house when I grew up as a kid. And he used to have one in his shed in the basement where he used to write his write. And I had this like, and I just thought, I'm meant to buy this. I've no idea why, but I just know I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah. Wild egg. Well, that's so interesting, isn't it? Because as you were talking there about like just knowing something is a yes, just feeling it, even though it doesn't make sense. And like it feels like, well, it is. That's the process that Holly, your lead character, goes through in the book. That's what she's trying to discover, like whether she is meant to have a child. Like she's looking for that yes or that no. And so it's a very similar process, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And I think because of the journey that I've been through, and it's been amplified and strengthened and deepened through Right and Wild Egg, I feel like I'm really attuned to that now. I hear it quite loudly now, whereas I think at the beginning of the journey that's inspired Wild Egg, I wasn't in dialogue with that part of me at all. Much really. It kind of had suppressed a lot of it, and now it's very alive, all the time really. So I'm checking in, going, how does this actually feel? Do I feel pulled to all this? Do I feel neutral? Do I feel repelled away? And like really getting present to that, I think really changes fundamentally the way that I'm making decisions. And it's like kind of, yes, I know there might be some rational things, and obviously, and you can come in at some point, but I need to know if energetically this is a yes or a no, or I need to sit with it. Then you can come in later with some more rational things that might need to be thought about.
Yeah.
But you have to wait.
That initial decision has to come from that feeling place.
Yeah.
And you do a really great job in the book, actually, of like describing that process and what it's like for Holly, and like times when she can't seem to access that. And of course, because I think we're conditioned not to listen to those kind of nudges, that inspiration, that kind of inner knowing. We're taught that, we should be trying to figure everything out from our thinking brain rather than kind of that place of just deep knowing within us. So I love the way you describe how that is for Holly and the different things she tries, all the different kind of the workshops and retreats and everything. I'm sure so many of us can identify, like I could definitely identify with it. I was just stop turning those pages.
And you know, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I can remember there was a point a few years ago where, and I'm 50 now, so I was in my 40s when this happened. But I kind of remember this point of suddenly thinking, I've spent so much of my adult life being annoyed with my body. It doesn't look right, it doesn't look how I want, trying to control it, trying to make it, kind of be a certain way, and like, why aren't you just more like this and more like that? And, being resentful. My sister got my extra 2 inches and I'm shorter than all of that stuff, about, and Brené Brown talks about this, about body image and appearance is the number one shame trigger for women. So I think what I started to reflect on was, I'm really blessed, like my body's healthy. I started switching it round and really trying to be grateful for my body and be appreciative and much more gentle with my own body. And I think there's been part of that process, I think, as well as the psychological and emotional and energetic process that happened about tuning the intuition. I think it's almost like coming back into your own body, and rather than just beating it up and being like, why aren't you better? It's like loving your body. And I feel like they've been important to bring together in order to really be in relationship with your body, because there's so much wisdom in our body, but I think how are you going to hear that if you're just kind of berating it all the time? But that took me a long time to understand, I think.
Oh yeah me too like I really I'm 50 now, and I feel like my process, like certainly throughout my 40s, was almost like coming home to my body after so long of like wanting it to be a particular way and just being very disconnected from my body. So that's really, really powerful, really powerful. So how are you feeling now, Jen, that you've been through this process? And Wild Egg, that as we're recording this, it's about to be birthed into the world within the next few weeks. When this episode is going out, it will be its way into the world. Like that birthing process, how do you feel about that?
Honestly, I feel so much joy. I could weep because it's so beautiful. Like, and every time if I just go into silence and really receive that, I just want to cry with joy, because for so many reasons, I suppose, because I've wanted to write a book since I can remember the moment I had this dream of just wanting to write a book when I was 21. So it's been with me for a long time. It feels like it's connected to my dad, because my dad had always wanted to write a book. So it feels connected to my childhood. I'm really proud of myself that I finally learned how to get my ego out of the way and the persistence I think that I had to keep going for 20 odd years. I'm really proud of myself for that. And I just feel really humbled and delighted to have been able to experience the magical creativity of the actual process itself. It feels like a wondrous thing to have been able to experience. And I feel like no matter what happens for the rest of my life, I'll always have this, and I've put something out into the world that I hope is going to touch, some other people's lives, and maybe inspire some people, maybe, just make some women who read it feel heard and seen and validated. And it's just such a joyful feeling to know that. So I just feel it's hard to put into words, actually, but just I said to my mum, I feel like I finally had it in my lifetime's dissertation. Where you've got to hand your dissertation in, and all the time you're kind of like, I should be sitting at my desk, but shouldn't really be round at my friends having coffee, and I definitely shouldn't be going out to this party. It's always kind of hanging. I've had this for 20 years, like this nagging feeling, and drip of like there's something really important I'm meant to be doing that I'm not doing. The liberation, to come back to the word from earlier, that I feel from finally having done that is absolutely powerful. And it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful peaceful place at the same time as being joyful. I feel like I've come home finally. I'm like, just in this place of like, ooh, what's Wild Egg going to be when she goes out in the world? What do you want? How am I going to serve that? Because I've literally cleared a big space in my life. So I'm not really working at the moment. So I'm kind of just, okay, show me what's going to happen next.
I've got a feeling she will, very clearly. So
Yeah.
I can really feel that joy. And yeah, thank you for like speaking about like that feeling of completing something like really important that has been with you for so many years. And I don't think there's like, it's very rarely in our lives I feel that we get to actually experience that. I've only experienced it a couple of times in my life where it's like, oh, that's, of course these things are never done because Wild Egg is right into the world, and you know it's a continuing journey. But you know that Pete, I've just got real chills from speaking about that. You know, it's really, really special to get to this place and you know, create something that has been there, like calling you for so long.
Yeah, it feels like I've fulfilled a soul level contract. Like at last, I mean, like I've finally got out of my own way, or the creative process's own way enough, and I guess had the courage as well to some extent to finally fulfill that contract. That in a way I kind of love the idea that some me that signed up to like, I don't know, lifetimes ago in another dimension, who knows, but that's the feeling of it for me. It's like, oh, thank you. I'm so grateful. It's like I get to pass go and get me 200 quid at last.
Oh, how beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Jen, for those listening to this and they want to find out more about you, like, obviously, you know, people are going to go and get their copies of Wild Egg, which is really available everywhere books are sold online. But what's the best way for them to find out more about you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Wild Egg 21. I'm also on Twitter at Jennifer Flint 5, and I've got an email, so I'd love to hear from people who've maybe read the book to, you know, talk about their experiences. So I've got wildegg22@gmail.com. So yeah, and then who knows what other wild eggery. I'm sure there's going to be other things. I just don't know what they are yet.
Exactly.
I'm waiting for my next mission.
Your next head turning. Like, okay, that's next.
Go this way.
Oh, well, we'll make sure all of those details are in the show notes. And it's just been such a delight and an honour to kind of be here for part of the Wild Egg journey and to help kind of birth this amazing book into the world. I really can't wait to see where it leads. Thank you so much.
Me too. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.